Well, working in extreme heat is a growing and urgent issue for Australians, with many workplaces underprepared. That's according to research published today by the Australia Institute's Centre for Future Work, which points to last summer's bushfires as evidence of just how exposed we are. Report author Dr. Elizabeth Humphrys joins us now. Dr. Humphrys, what is heat stress and what does it take to get to that point in the workplace?
Hi, Gemma. Heat stress is really when the body is pushed beyond what it can tolerate while doing work. Physically exerting work, wearing heavy PPE, these are all factors that can contribute to heat stress. And it's harder to cool the body when you're in high humidity as well. We tend to cool the body through sweating, and the higher the humidity, the harder it is to do that.
So how prepared are Australian workplaces?
Our research would say quite underprepared, that we've looked at a few different industries: construction, municipal workers, and delivery riders in the city of Sydney. And all of them report that there are problems with occupational health and safety frameworks and whether they can be implemented. The implementation is patchy, and workers find themselves often in situations where they can't refuse to work, and yet they're in situations that are causing them illness.
And Australia's north has been identified as a standout globally in terms of heat risk.
Yeah, heat risk and really the consequences for workers from climate change is a growing area of research and concern. The International Labour Organisation nominates 4 sort of key areas globally, and Northern Australia is one of those, both because of the high heat and the humidity. So we're finding that workers that work outside, workers that work inside without proper cooling, or in workplaces that can't be cooled, but also situational heat. So emergency service workers, say firefighters who go to a car accident site, it's already 40 or 45 degrees, but in the middle of a road it's even hotter. They're in heavy PPE, they're cutting people out of cars and exerting themselves. That is sort of a bit of a time bomb for heat stress and fatigue, illness, nausea. And it's not just a question of the right equipment with heat stress, it's a question of whether people can stop work. And obviously you can't stop in an emergency, so you need the resourcing for other teams, say a firefighter's in that situation, to be able to relieve you so you can cool down.
So don't health and safety laws address this?
There are health and safety laws in place, but a lot of it depends on how much power workers have to sort of exert control, I guess, over refusing dangerous work in a workplace. And as we've seen with bushfire smoke in the last bushfire season, we also saw it with COVID. Not all workers can stop work or say to their bosses they're not going to work in dangerous conditions. We just saw particularly more poorly paid and insecure workers at Spotless in Melbourne after a positive COVID case, where the union was taken to Fair Work to try and force the workers back to work. Not all workers have the ability or structures around them to I guess, insist on safe working practices. And that's something that we recommend that has to be addressed.
And yet there doesn't seem to be a one-size-fits-all approach. So what do we need to learn? How do we address this?
It definitely has to be, there needs to be a national strategy on dealing with the consequences of climate change for workers. That includes heat stress, bushfire smoke, and the consequences of extreme weather. Policy and legislative frameworks need to be improved, but also enforcement needs to be a priority. There has to be education and training, and there's got to be resourcing. I think one startling fact we found from our survey of construction workers is the vast majority believed that their employers didn't really care whether heat stress was a factor for them, and workers reported that employers were much more focused on productivity than they were on workers' safety, and that absolutely has to be reversed. Rising temperatures are going to mean a worsening situation with issues like heat stress, and Australia is one of the places where it is going to get worse. It's really time to have a national strategy around dealing with the consequences of climate change for workers.
Dr. Elizabeth Humphrys, Associate at the Australia Institute's Centre for Future Work. Thank you.
Thank you.
The bottom 20% get nothing. They're really unfair tax cuts.
People want to see much stronger action from the government when it comes to climate change.
Wages are growing at their slower, sustained pace.
Transitioning to net zero emissions, it doesn't seem like there's much room for gas.